All right. Well, welcome to part two of today's first meeting of a People's Forum for Cooling the Planet, which was originally intended to be a volunteers pre-meeting, and we'll talk about volunteer stuff, but I think it's great that we continue on with what we're doing right now, which is letting everyone share ideas, comments, questions, etc. Norman had his hand up. Robert, you had your hand up before, but then for some reason it went down,
Yeah,
but you're second in the queue.
Shaman, I'm not sure what happened. The hands got kind of out of order. I think that Andrew is next.
Oh, okay. In that case, go ahead, Andrew. Andrew from Jamaica, and we had a really good conversation just a couple days ago. So great to have you here, Andrew. Good. If you can unmute and take it away.
Sure. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andrew. Let me try and share my screen. Sorry about that.
Oh, actually, you're not co-host. So if you leave the room,
Let me fix Shaman. I can fix it
okay, go ahead.
for me. I think maybe I can. No, I can't.
Yeah, Andrew, if you don't mind going back to the main room, then Marco will make you co-host there. Then you can come back here and we'll put you right in top of the queue. Okay?
Okay. You can go ahead and move me when you're ready. Or do I have to leave?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
1 second.
Go ahead, Marco.
I can do it.
Okay, thanks, Marco.
Oh no, I can't.
Or Andrew, you can just click leave room. Look at the bottom right of your screen. You should see a blue button that says leave room, and then you'll go back to the main room. All right. In the meantime, let's carry on. Now, Robert, I think you had I don't know who was first, Norman or Robert, but go ahead, Robert. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Jamin, for this opportunity and inviting us all in this cooling our planet. Really, we are responsible for this planet because we are staying in. You cannot stay in the house and you let that house burn and you think that you are safe. So if we can work together, we can save this planet. Only thing, what I wanted to put across, very many people have come up with very many ideas, but those ideas, they have been on the mouse, speaking only, but not implementing those ideas. So I beg, if we can come up with ideas and we see how we can come up with the strategic action or plan of implementing that idea. For example, if you can examine your lifestyle, how you stay, are you the one reducing the carbon emission towards cooling the planet, or you are contributing carbon emission? So we should be a first example of how we stay. If now, just imagine if now you can change your lifestyle, you are going to reduce those footprints, and now we will not sit and wait for those scientists to come and save us, yet we can also try to give.
I'm sorry, Robert. I think you froze up there. You appear to be frozen, maybe because of internet connection. All right. So when you come back, Robert will put you right at the top of the queue. Meanwhile, Andrew, now that you can screen share, go ahead and we'll just work with this, and Robert will let you continue as soon as you can speak again. Go ahead, Andrew.
Okay. Is everyone? Well, let me click share. Is everyone seeing now?
Yeah, we're seeing that you're screen sharing. Yep, brainstorming cells, brain cells.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Good afternoon, guys. I'm Andrew. I'm from Jamaica. I had some ideas as to how we could do some brainstorming exercises as it pertains to the whole technical and non-technical approach to the problems that might be out there. I came up with the idea of brainstorming cells. It's a group of people. And move on to the next slide. Okay. Okay, so what we're looking at is 12 creatives and 12 experts. So it's a small group of 24 people. It deals with intuitive thinking, where the creatives don't have to be from the field, but they stretch the boundary of the known. So they ask questions, very pointed questions. Skepticism is allowed, so you don't have to be a true believer. You can say that you're not convinced about something, and you can ask questions, and it forces towards the truth in an objective sense, and it might actually reinforce something that someone might not have been aware before. So the nature of the question, I know that there's a STEM versus a humanities aspect to it, whether it's biophys, chem, math, or history, philosophy, art, and econ. So since climate change has a vast impact on civilization, it's multiple areas, whether it be STEM, there'd also be multiple ways of approaching it as well, and multiple effects. I know that people have been talking about how the economies of the world are being affected, so on and so forth. So those questions would fall within the humanities or the arts, and the other solutions, the practical solutions, would be in the STEM section. That's what I'm trying to get at. The experts bound the discussion with their knowledge. Just like today, we had Professor Dr. McPherson. We would have, in this case, 12 experts. Would be 3 for bio, 3 for physics, 3 for chemistry, 3 for math. That's what I'm trying to get at. For my approach, we would need we could use an external body to do the testing. I'm not necessarily sure that we would be the creatives per se, but if we wanted a sample, a good enough sample that would be meaningful, I would propose that the members of this sample set have no aphantasia. Aphantasia is a condition where the individual is unable to visualize in their mind. Like you can't picture an apple. You can know that the apple exists, but you can't actually visualize it mentally. That's called aphantasia. We want the people to have average to high creativity. Creativity is viewed as a trait. It's not a skill. It's measurable by testing. Average to high IQ and the preferred MBTI type. In this particular instance, for the creatives, I was thinking of intuition. This can be measured either within the introverted spectrum or the extroverted variety. For the experts, you're looking at the thinking aspect. So that's introverted or the extroverted. So you're talking about the second order cognitive function for the creatives and the third order cognitive function for the experts. So it's a transfer of an idea, a question, from one individual to the next. So it demands, I'm looking at the most, how information transfers in a conversation. So I know that this is a forum, so I'm trying to find a way to force, well, not to force an answer, to get an approximation of meaningful answers. I'm not saying that everyone's contribution isn't good or should not be shared. I'm just trying to get as close to the data points that would make a difference within a scientific context. That's what I'm trying to achieve. I noticed, well, I put Zener cards here. This is a highly controversial concept within parapsychology. Has a view about it, because in essence you're guessing, and there's a view that it might not necessarily be, there might not be science behind it, but if it were to be a tiebreaker instance, like if you were to choose between one candidate being in a group or being excluded from a group, you just say that this is their lucky number. Like if you're drawing a lot, but they wouldn't be drawing a lot, they'd be seeing how well they can guess. So that goes towards our cognitive function, perhaps. The information cycle that would be involved in this group is just like the heart and the 4-stroke engine. So it absorbs the material. It summarizes the material and you form the thesis. You conduct the experiment and you publish the results. So I tried to match it to academia and the scientific method as close as possible so that everything is okay. So far for the functions, I've noticed some advantages. I've identified a potential consultants that could be reached out to. The Pareto principle would be reduced for those who are not familiar with that. It holds that the few people would do most of the work, and then the bystander effect is also reduced. Where we're all familiar with that because we're here now. You're expecting other people to intervene and solve the problem. What I really want is that we can just get the data, and if we get the science right, you can do the other stuff. Just like you were saying that we can't solve the other problems if we don't try and address the runaway heating. So if we can just get as close an approximation to the data points, get that data, get it going as best as we can for the various solutions out there. If we look at the material and we just try to compress it and say, okay, what can we do to push this information forward? That's my vision of an effective brainstorming cell, a brain cell. That's my opinion. So if we can get the brainstorming right, I think that we can be effective as a group. That's my opinion, honestly, based on everything that I've heard and seen. I think that if we can get the brainstorming right, if we sort ourselves properly, and we expand along this pattern, I think that we can get good results. We can get the right questions. We might not necessarily know the right questions on our own. And as the fora becomes much larger, we might not necessarily go in the correct direction. But I think that if we bound it within the science and we have the creativity, we can get closer to it. We can begin to ask the right questions. That's what I really want for the group. That's everything from me for now. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Andrew. That's some impressive stuff that you've put together. And since you had it so organized, I let you go on for several minutes there, but we're going to try to keep it a little more concise just so that everyone has a first round. But I do want to point out that you and Stan Pokras, who's got his hand raised, and Mark McCormick, who spoke earlier, Dr. Dan, who was in here earlier, and Doc Time, who's not here today. But you folks in particular have a focus on methodology and structure and flow. Mark's work is based on Hegelian logic. Dr. Dan has a really cool kind of graphical user interface for building consensus and surfacing where there's disagreements. I've done a fair amount of thinking about this myself, but suffice it to say that we've got some really good talent here in the room, really creative talent, thinking about this problem, this opportunity. How do we, create the highest form of collective intelligence for generating ideas and solutions and really making progress on this topic? So I'd love to see all of you working together. And this gets back to the general principle of divide and conquer, right? We need some folks focusing on the collective intelligence piece, some other folks focusing on the problem and the urgency, other groups working on solutions, et cetera, as we talked about earlier. So really good stuff there, Andrew. And thank you. All right, I'm going to try to get it right in terms of the order, and help me out, Marco, if I'm missing it. But I think Michael had his hand up the longest at this point, followed by Jackie, and then Stan and Aaron. Go ahead, Michael.
I did. And it's so wonderful. What's the magic of this? I'm the guy that pulls even further out. I'm the guy that is about the awareness. And it's so magical to see. I put the paragraph while you were talking, Jamin. I put that paragraph in, and you talked exactly about the same things. In other words, you said nobody tells the truth, right? We want to make money on heart attacks, blood pressure, climate change. We define a problem and it becomes a business scheme. And then we don't say things. For example, this is about climate change, right? Did you read what I said? They found out that the difference between a Google search, not an AI, a regular Google search, and AI is 10 to 17 times more energy. These processor chips, yeah, that are so multi-millionaires or billionaires right now, they need so much water. They need daily water supply. All these data centers with AI data centers need so much water supply for 17 million households daily. So the whole thing is moving to the digital world. As a matter of fact, and the proof of that, that's my observation, because the money even moves to the digital world. The first time the awareness business, marketing and all that stuff has trumped the petrochemical industry in money-wise. And you know the awareness is zero, because the awareness is not in nature where you crawl and you crawl, you know, at another animal and it goes away and say, hey, give me, be aware, right? And or you want to swoon another partner of yours and pull up your feathers. The attention on in our metaverse, in the digital world, is just saying, hi, get me a lot of followers, get me, you know, shooting thing in apparel, which is also what you said. It's not about the many, it's about the few that are focused on humanity, and they're also not competing, but they're collaborating and contributing. And I think that's the, and my big question is, how can we stop making the people lie and pretending? And I think there's one cause that our financial principles are outdated. They only say it's never enough, no matter what you do, Jamin. Whatever you do, it's never enough. Where's the opposite? You need a binary. You can't have an so where enough needs to somehow be an opposite of it's never enough, no matter what. And it's not there. And that goes before, that affects everyone. That's the richest people in the world sucking us dry because they are in fight flight, and they just believe there's nobody excluded from that. It's never enough, no matter what I do. There's no one excluded, not Bill Gates, not Elon Musk, nobody. And that's why we always, because you and I need whatever, a couple of grand to live, survive. They need 400 million a month. And when you need 400 million a month, you're gonna do bad stuff. And your ego says, okay, I'm doing the good thing for the people, feed them all, and you feed them GMO stuff, and they can't digest it or get sick later. And then there's another business that makes money off being sick, because in the 80s we had 21% of infectious diseases, and after COVID was 67. So we can't even if we get the climate change down with all the technology, we cannot survive any climate change, because our immune systems are so screwed up from not clean food, not clean water, not clean air. Which if that's we take this as a vow of non-abandonment, of a vow to be physical. And I work with Maria Dolores, who is the ambassador for peace for human rights and responsibilities in Sweden. I work with her on that. So we gotta, if we focus from your stuff, I said that last time, from your side, you're doing perfect, Jamin. But we need to connect the regular human with you. And that cannot comprehend it when you talk about scientific stuff about climate change versus that. What can everybody do? Like in recycling, everybody was recycling, but then we found out it's only 9%. But the people want to be involved. So if we say, hey, vow for humanity, vow for your clean water, clean air, clean food, meaning you can eat McDonald's, but it is prescribed. It is totally transparent. It's not going to be hidden anymore. And it's not saying natural flavors, and there's one natural flavor and 280 chemicals in it. And that's what I just want to give plant those seeds, because I trust that every one of you can integrate those seeds. And this is what really the true value of knowledge is, when two life perspectives of people with experiences exchange and open their own one-on-one experience, because we are all one-on-one of 8 billion people. There's no same. I've never seen another Jamin, you know? So that's all I want to say. Thank you, Jamin.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. All right. Well, let's keep moving it around the room. And I'm going to ask people to be a bit more concise than the last couple of examples. Just so
Sorry.
No. That's okay. We're just figuring this out. I just realized that was important. So no harm, no foul. But let's keep it flowing. And with that, Jackie is up next, followed by Stan. Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you, Herman. I feel so incredibly like I am exactly where I need to be at exactly the right time. I have a bachelor's and a master's in business, focusing on nonprofits. I've always worked with volunteers. I am so excited about this. I'm just covered in goosebumps because I've been online looking for information forever, and I've been with the Climate Psychology Alliance for 4 years, watching them go through the process of finally understanding a little bit more of what's going on. I was stunned at how few of them really had a grasp on how big this problem is. And I just want to point out one thing. The other day, May 25th, I was on a call with Dr. Lisa, except it's spelled with an E, Van Sesternen, and she started the Climate Psychiatry Alliance. She answered the one question that I've been asked over and over again: why are there so many deniers? What she said was, because she's a psychiatrist, people come to her all the time and want drugs. Give me drugs, I've got anxiety. It's usually they say it's work, it's a teenager, or it's a marriage. That's what they say to her. And then she says to them, and what about the climate? She says they throw their hands up and go, oh, I can't do a thing about that. So we need to understand, as it is her professional opinion, that everybody knows there's a big problem and everybody is frightened to death to admit it and will not pitch in. We need the right human capital for the volunteers here to make this work. That's all. Thanks.
Beautiful, Jackie. Thank you. And bless you. I'm so happy you're here. We must have been separated at birth. In fact, I feel like everyone in this room has been separated at birth. And let us not be separated any longer. Let us continue to come together. We're doing it every Tuesday, starting at 2:00 Eastern. That's kind of the best time we figured for getting the most time zones that can join. And there will be people all around the world joining in. We're just getting started here. And like I said, there need to be multiple forums like this in multiple languages and different time zones, et cetera, et cetera. But let us set the example. All right, I'm not going to rant any longer. Aaron, followed by Mark McCormick. Go for it, Aaron.
Wait a minute. Whoa.
Oh, I'm Stan. I'm so sorry. Somehow your hand went down. So sorry. Sorry about that, Aaron.
Yeah.
Stan, go ahead.
It has to
Followed
do
by
with my
Aaron.
Zoom software. They take it down whenever I don't speak.
Yeah.
All right. I want to show a 4-minute video that discusses a structural sociological process called the strength of weak ties.
Beautiful.
Anybody here ever heard of it? The strength of weak ties? Okay, so Marco and Jamin make sense because I've been touting this for a while. But anyway, here we go. I think I'm not going to have any trouble doing this.
Just make sure you click on share sound and share video when
Yep,
you.
I know that, yes. And we got, whoops, missed it. Missed it. And I have to click on the screen before I can click on the 2 items. All right, now we got it. And how do we tell it to go? Because it's not, here we go. And I don't hear any sound.
Chapter 5.
There it goes.
Groups and Networks. Paradox. Strength of weak ties. It is the people with whom we are the least connected who offer us the most opportunities. Unless you live alone in the woods with no internet access, you are probably a member of many different social groups. These groups embody social networks, which are held together by the relationships within them. An important dimension of these social networks is the extent to which they are embedded. Embeddedness refers to the degree to which relationships are reinforced through indirect paths within the social network. The more embedded a tie, the stronger it is. That is, the more densely the relationships are stitched together. But sometimes it pays not to be too completely embedded. For example, Maria and Tyler are social entrepreneurs. We know this because the people on top have no direct connection to the people on the bottom other than through them. By linking two social networks, the tie between Maria and Tyler is what sociologists call a weak tie. That is, not reinforced through indirect connections. This weak tie provides new opportunities for dating and job referrals, not only for them, but for their friends as well. Maria and Tyler are in a position to mediate communication between the two groups, at least until the others start to meet each other. In technical terms, they command a structural hole in the network. This theory applies not only to groups of people, but also to groups of nations, corporations, bureaucracies, and any number of other social forms. The bottom line is that if you need a shoulder to cry on, pick someone with whom you have a highly embedded connection. But if you want to meet a new romantic potential, or find a job, focus on the folks who don't know the rest of your peeps.
That's it. So I'll stop. And anybody have any questions? I'll be glad to ask as long as I have time left. I don't know if anybody can answer, can ask questions. Jamin, Marco, is people able to ask questions?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Pictures
Okay.
worth 1,000 words.
All right. So that diagram was useful?
Very much so. Very much so.
Weak ties. This new effort is going to help us develop more stronger weak ties. Is that right?
That's
Or
right,
something
exactly.
like
That's
that?
it.
Or
It's
our new
those
effort
weak
next
ties.
Tuesday. New,
It's the weak
yeah.
ties that take us around the world. You're not going to
Oh,
get
good.
everybody connected to everybody, except through the weak ties, the people that operate as, I call them, connectors.
Yeah.
There's another set of terms that I use, but I'll leave it alone at that. Connectors is good enough. They're the intermediaries between the different groups, and without the intermediaries, there's no way to get all those people involved or even know that the other stuff is going on. So I'm willing to help guide the beginning of the building of the weak ties. And it will probably involve a lot of work. I don't have time for a lot of work. So I'm going to be very interested in having people who want to build structure, understand that it takes work. What we're talking about is collecting names and making introductions. People need to be introduced to each other by somebody that they have already met. And we need to do that around the world in multiple languages. Yeah. Okay. So
I think we can all do that, Stan, no?
that's
Like,
right.
I
Exactly.
love being I call myself a connecting rod. Sorry, my
Yes.
dog's barking. But, so I'm willing to do that. I mean,
But can you be a networker and also be a connector? You can be a
Yep,
networker
yep.
and connector.
There's all levels, any level,
Oh,
any
yeah.
whatever works, that's all that matters.
Yeah,
And
real good.
however we can build out the network of people doing the connecting. I mean, we have to connect a good portion of 8 billion people, probably about 1 billion needs to be brought into at least the idea that we're building something. We don't know what it is that we're building, but that's up to the chizzy part. That's the creative process that happens when people realize that there are other people that they could work with.
so what's our first step, Stan?
The first step is to meet on Tuesday.
And
And
then we
we'll
could
start-
create a page on your database
Yep,
as our group, perhaps. I
yep,
recommend.
yep. I run
Thank you.
something called Other Networks, which is a website that's it uses the same sort of software that Wikipedia uses. So it looks a lot like that. And what it does is connect people and organizations and projects and documents and books in a format that allows these things to be connected to each other. And we have about 6,000 pages already in other networks, and almost all 2,000 speakers who have spoken on Humanity Rising, and all 949 episodes of Humanity Rising are outlined or cataloged in other networks. So it's been a big project for me for 3 years, and with other people helping. And so it has a chunk of the network already built. So thank you for whoever else wants to do some of the work, collecting names, maybe even we have somebody that likes to do programming in artificial intelligence and get the artificial intelligence to collect the names. That would be a useful thing to have happen. Names of people, names of groups who are sympathetic to our cause. And then we'll start from there. And then we'll introduce those people to each other. And we'll build a network of people to do introductions. And it's the introducing of people to each other, matchmaking, that can make it work. So I'll stop.
Beautiful.
Arian
Beautiful.
is next. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. And I'll just comment that, one of those, sets of connections that we identified when Andrew made his beautiful presentation is connecting Andrew with you, with Doc Time, with Mark McCormick, with Dr. Dan, and others of us who are passionate about collective human intelligence.
Yeah.
And the different facets of it. So very good. All right. And I encourage everyone to make connections here. You've got the chat. You can send private messages to folks.
All right. I have another meeting. I got to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, great having you here, Stan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. Next up is Aaron. Aaron, thanks for your patience. Go for it.
I'm not very good at communicating in words, but picking up on the first Michael, I don't know if he's still here. I think STEM is a big problem. Demarcation of STEM basically stops cross-disciplinary work. There was no mention of ecological people, but there was economics, whereas Brian Check's the theory of the trophic theory of money actually shows that economics is bound by ecology and physics, and economics only recognizes them as externalities. So that's something that really needs to be acknowledged. My second, Michael, on AI and the energy, I totally agree. I've studied AI to the paper level, to experimenting with AI systems that are available, and found them very lacking compared to the amount of energy they use. And if you look at how much an amount of energy that a human brain uses, then it just makes AI look ridiculous in the things that it doesn't see and misses. But it does the things that you wouldn't see otherwise, particularly in it's basically a layered number of predictive systems that work on abstract levels, and they're able to make predictions on large amounts of data that normal human beings wouldn't be able to see. Stan, who's just left, I like the idea of an alternative Earth catalogue. If anyone remembers the I can't remember who actually originally. I'm terrible with names, but anyway, yeah, I'm working on systems to try and collate information. I'm working on a system to a crawler, a search engine crawler, like Google did originally, but it crawls PDFs as well and gets the citations, the authors, their universities, all that sort of information, and does it on the website and feeds it back between them. So it will look for citations on the web if it can't find them via DOI, and then it will search on search engines for them, or in Crossref.org or other sources. And basically, I want to get together a search engine that will give us all the scientific body of knowledge in climate change and the environment. So that will be a tool that anybody can then use. In parallel, a long-lasting project that I've been working on is something that would be a bit like Facebook, but democratically run by its users, so that decisions can be made. If something gets flagged up, they can be taken to a number of users who can make a decision upon that. I'm using what's called meta technology, not Meta's technology as in Facebook Meta, but in stuff that I've been working on for years, where you have two-level representation of information, one describing the other, and it actually even describes itself. So you get these things called meta forms that allow you to design forms in forms, to take decision matrices and collate them from people's decisions, dealing with issues, etc., all automatically. But then it's all human-based decisions that deal with it in the end. That's where I'm coming from. I've studied climate change since, well, I heard about it in the mid-90s from a David Attenborough film or films series. And it shocked me. The things that I saw back then, I now see happening now 15 to 50 years faster than I thought they were going to occur. 2009, I came across Facebook. I came across scientific papers. I came across medical papers. I came across climate change papers. So I've been blogging them on my Facebook for years, since 2009, 15 years worth of going through papers, trying to get a handle on it all. I was on my own near enough until XR came along, and then they ignored me. And I think I had a lot of information that would have been useful to them, very shocking information that I won't go into now, as if it isn't all shocking anyway. And that's where I've came from. I really need to find other programmers, but I need them in specific languages if they want to work on this project. There's a language called TypeScript, which is a superset of JavaScript that I mainly work in because it's the most normalizable language rather than Python and all these languages that aren't structurally and types sounds. This is what all these books are on, papers on something called type theory. I studied for years. I was working on my own computer language, and I needed to study type theory to get the static type system for it. So that's a bit where I come from.
You said TypeScript. TypeScript.
Yep, TypeScript.
Is software. Is that a software application or something?
It's a typed version of JavaScript. Basically,
okay.
It has type annotations like number, string, string array, number array, structures, etc. Just like C++, but it does it over top as a preprocessor to generate JavaScript. It means
well, I highly recommend that you link up with other networks, Stan Parkhurst's network, and list your interests on there, and you might run into somebody that has a similar interest on other networks.net.
Yeah, that
other
Stan
networks.
Parkhurst, who just left, who just spoke before you spoke, Aaron.
Yeah,
I think there's
you.
some really potential, really good synergies between you two. And Stan is also quite connected,
Yes.
and he's been working on this since like the late '60s. I don't know if it was the Whole Earth catalog that you were referencing. Okay, great. He was inspired by the Whole Earth catalog, and that got him going in the late '60s on,
Cool.
on this whole journey. And so, yeah, I look forward to the two of you. Also, I'm adding you to the list of the folks who really have a lot to contribute in the realm of collective human intelligence and the strength
Do
that
you have my email?
please leave your contact in the chat, and
Yeah.
so we can stay in touch and
Right.
and and if you don't want to be added to the email list, make sure you specify that. And this goes to everyone, so feel free to leave your contact info in the chat, and I'll be happy to add you to our email list unless you specify otherwise. All right. Very good.
Nice one.
Stuff, Aaron. Thank you.
Cheers.
So happy you're
Thank you.
here. All right. Next up is Mark McCormick. Take it away, Mark.
Hey guys, I'm on my other computer. It won't let me show my camera on this one because I'm streaming this hunger strike on YouTube. It's not streaming this meeting, but I really like what's being said here. In terms of who was the woman that mentioned the climate psychiatrist? I would really love that climate psychiatrist to get a connection to them for this legal case, and to try and get Eco-Justice on board here to sue the Canadian government for not having protective enough policies for activists and for challenging their policies here. We're in the criminal court and civil court now for months, so it's starting to turn into a big deal. That a climate psychiatrist that could come in and say, no, these are real issues, would really help. And in terms of what Stan was talking about with the weak links or weak connections,
Strength of weak
yeah,
ties.
weak ties, right? Yeah, I think that's.
I know somebody who's an MSW. He's a gifted healer. I will check with him whether he might be somewhat of a consultant to you, Mark. His name is
Yeah, I love
Jeffrey
that.
Stillman. Jeffrey Stillman. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. You're fading in and out, by the way. Is anybody else having trouble hearing Mark?
Yeah, Mark, your volume fades in and out.
Okay, thank you,
I
guys.
have no idea what's happening. I don't know why it's happening, but okay, maybe I should sign back in with my phone. But as long as I'm understandable, I would love to have that, Michael. Any of that would be willing to testify in court how serious the problem is, because they're trying to make the hunger strikes look like they're not rational. It's like, no, I think the rational people are the ones starting to freak out right now. It's the ones who are the delusional ones who are sitting back, going to their 9-to-5 job and not doing anything different. So yeah, anybody that could support the case's merit would be fantastic, and who has credibility. In terms of the weak ties, yeah, we're finding the same thing. We bring in somebody new that doesn't have a whole lot of nobody knows much about him. It gives you a chance to reset. Because when in human networks, the way culture works is, I think it's dialectical. I think there's this universal kind of logic that underpins the fabric of all meaning. And when you're in a community long enough, when people don't know how to do something called sublate, it just becomes gossip, and then people hold you in your limitations in what's called negation. And so I think that this weak ties is basically allowing new opportunities to be seen, and that's what allows the good sides of our personalities to be seen first, and then we act on that, and then action is taken. Because when you hang out in a community long enough, if you don't jive perfectly, the gossip chain and your limits are brought out, and then people don't want to trust you and they don't want to lift you. And we need to lift each other, and I find that there's a lot of power dynamics happening, and that we need to find out who has sensuous power. So the people who have the most beauty, the most celebrity, the most wealth, the most body privilege, most cultured privilege, the most IQ privilege, those people sound like they're supposed to be the best leaders, but actually we found there's a higher criterion called UQ that we need to measure, because it's wisdom. It's not just knowledge or sheer processing power. We need to get people who have that kind of trait to be leading these initiatives, or those or we'll be building very slowly on weak ties, and then these communities will turn into these gossip factories that reduces momentum and critical mass exposure. So in long story short, I think this comes down to CHISI, collective human superintelligence, that James has been working on, And earlier, Jamin, you were working on how to structure meetings. Like, it comes down to meetings. Everything happens in human meetings, right? Economies don't exist without humans interacting with each other. Governments don't exist without humans interacting with each other. And the thing is, if you have a bad meeting with somebody, then you won't work with them. And we're just having lots of bad meetings internationally that's reducing trust. So I want to call the meeting process itself Chizzy. And there's 4 stages to any team building. And we're about to go through forming. We're forming right now. Then there's going to be storming, then norming, and then performing. And the storming stage is where usually you lose a lot of momentum. And I think dialectics is going to come in there, and we can have a very particular version of Chizzy that's a word game where we actually start defining what the words mean that we use, so we stop speaking past each other. I think that's absolutely essential right after this forming stage, or else we're just going to lose all the momentum. Because everybody can say, hey, we want to stop climate change. Hey, we want love and peace. Hey, but the devil's in the details. When you try to unpack those words and those statements, that's where you get into these conflicts that we call nuclear dialectics that rip apart the team before it even gets going. There's like 200 of them. So I really feel like that would be the next step with the newsletter after that. Meeting on Tuesdays would be fantastic, but I feel like being very clear on what needs to happen in terms of team building is necessary. And last but not least here with the meta discourse, this meta coding that you're doing, TypeScript, I always thought JavaScript was better because of WebAssembly, at least for now. But I would love to, I'm a coder too, so we're creating a server to measure time for New World Intergovernment. And I guess the last point here, Jamin, I know you said to keep it short. I really do think, guys, that unless we have a regulatory mechanism that has power internationally, we will not be able to get the funding to do the panels. Unless we create a critical mass of grassroots movements, which we might be able to do, we won't be able to enforce it very easily. And I really do think that we need to unite the military around the world through the retired generals first, and then grow a new world state that is based on this new type of governing structure. And I feel like almost anything else is naive unless you can either trigger critical mass or start that government. And I have a funny feeling they're going to be supporting each other because people will want to be a part of a new governance system that's not just draconian capitalism. And this meta discourse is important because the way we code the platform itself has to be sort of open source and transparent. And we found anyway, Aaron, that the stack we're using is JavaScript in the front end and the back end. And then we use Redis, an open source key value pair database, because it's hyper customizable for relational databases and also for graph databases. So I feel like if I could jump on with what you're doing, you want to jump on with what we're doing, we're going to be programming in the next day and a half to have these special timers with these very simple voting. It's called crystallized voting that happens in every single meeting. So your autonomy is in the meeting as direct participatory democracy, and everybody gets the same amount of time. So anyway, I want to kind of see the discussion to go somewhere hyper practical, so we don't just bog down in the Chizzy, discussion. We have a lawsuit, we have timers, we have very practical things. We've had 220 meetings in the last 3 months on how to perfect these meetings, and it's working. So I would really love to share what we've learned with this group and really start making those weak ties between all these other communities. And we have a plan where we're going to start with like building bridges and then build up bigger until we get to millions of people. So thanks, Jamin, for giving me the chance to sum up what everybody else said and bring it together into coherence. But I'm curious what you guys think. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mark. Well, you've inspired me to raise my hand, and so I'll comment in a moment. But first, we've got BJ has been waiting. Go ahead, BJ.
Yeah, thank you so much. Gosh, Mark, thank you about that, because we do need structures that work to get things done. And so I'm curious about that and interested, and I do think that will be worth looking into. The book I've been reading is called Change: How to Make Big Things Happen. And one of the things that the guy has studied, it's not getting a big influencer that then will influence people. The influencers actually wait until there's enough people below to move. And so some of the examples that the guy did for a study was you get groups of people and they don't know each other and they have to come up with one single name. So I might say Mary and somebody else says Louise, and by the time you get to you say it again, you get a couple to meet and they have to say a name, and after a while, within minutes, they all come up with the same name. Well, we need to all come up with the same solution, and not just by repetition, but by understanding. So one of the things I wonder about is when do I present what I feel like is something worth everybody looking at? You know, do they have to get to know me first? Do they have to know my credentials? Or can I go ahead and bring it up now? And as you notice in my chat, I've been bringing up some things. Like I wonder, Aaron, if it's too late for you, if you're already collecting articles. And so I put a couple just now in the chat. One is just news about dairy and the G nations finally seeing milk and dairy being a part of the climate problem. But the other one is a paper that has been published. And so I'm looking forward. I know that to come together and come up with a decision, we have to really be open. So I have to remind myself to be open to what other solutions are, even though I think I'm going down a good track. And so I do that. And I wanted to say also something to the guy who, I guess it's not Andrew, it was somebody who was here from Uganda. And that school, we knew somebody who was building a vegan school, and that is going stronger and stronger. And now they're having vegan festivals. And so they are making a difference just with the food they eat. They can't come to these meetings because it's very hard for them to do that. But somebody in Ethiopia, they've got a vegan food going now because, you know, they're dying over there due to war and due to deforestation. I mean, that used to be a more or less deserty place. So they are actually making a big difference by trying to plant plants and getting people to realize they don't have to have the animals to feed them. So there may be some ways to connect some people there. I don't know, but mostly they're doing what they can. I think I was thrilled to hear from Jackie, and each of you. You've already enhanced my understanding of what's going on, and I'm glad that we're doing this. So thank you for letting me have a few words.
Beautiful. Thank you, BJ. Thank you so much. I always love hearing your beautiful and brilliant insights. All right. Next is Jamin, followed by Michael Prent. Take it away, Jamin. Don't mind if I do. So I wanted to comment on, Mark, you were talking about how, you know, we need regulatory mechanisms. You've talked about a world government or different forms of governance. Very important distinction, government versus governance. And I believe that what we are co-creating right here with PFCP, the People's Forum for Cooling the Planet, really constitutes a nascent, emergent form of governance, because where everyone else has abdicated to just kind of going with the flow, let's let the fascist model of the this unholy marriage between government and corporations, just including the media, do whatever the heck they want. We present a challenge to that, not a direct confrontational challenge, but in the spirit of Buckminster Fuller, don't try to confront and defeat the old system, create a new system that makes the old system obsolete. So what we're co-creating here is precisely that new system, that new model, that new collective human intelligence that is unencumbered by the constraints imposed by the fascist model on the members of the fascist model, thus imposing very severe constraints on their collective human intelligence. They do practice forms of collective human intelligence, but they are incredibly constrained by the rules under which they choose to play, which is it has to be profitable. If I'm going to play, I need to make a profit. Profit, profit, profit. To quote Christopher, we joke about that, this intense, obsession with profit. Daniel Pinchbeck talks about the possession trance. I mean, it's a trance. It's an addiction to hoarding, addiction to money, and this trance that we're in that we can actually possess. And thanks, Christopher. So let us have faith in each other. Let us continue to come together. Let's have faith in the process of collective human intelligence. What do we got there? Donut economics. Donut economics. Yeah, I've heard about that. circular economics, etc. Now, this gets back to this interesting thing. So many different topics have been raised today, and they're all important. And as we write about in the Google Doc, the second one in the series of 3, it's not that cooling the planet is going to solve all our problems. Absolutely not. But it is the absolute best place to start. It is the only place to start because it is the one crisis which is on track to making all the other crises absolutely moot by destroying all of life on Earth, right, in the very near term. And so while I want to think globally in terms of all the problems and all the opportunities, right, I want to act locally, not in a geographic space, but in a topical space. And that being the topic of cooling the planet, right? So, and I think that by starting with cooling the planet and the collective human intelligence, the PFCP that we're forming right here, right now, to address this, we can create a model which can then be propagated and applied across all other realms, and then also in the process integrate these realms, because it's one world, we're one people, and it is one, integrated web of life that we are a part of, and everything we do has ripple effects, and anything anyone does has ripple effects across the entire network or meshwork. So I'm just sharing my perspective that it makes sense to start here, to start with cooling the planet, and then expand out from there gradually and organically over time, because so many of these connections are inevitable anyway, especially as we address the human issues. When we address the delusions and addictions and omnicidal trajectories that humanity is on, which keep us from focusing on and solving this most urgent planetary crisis, those impact all realms of life, not just the heating, the overheating, and eventual cooling of the planet. Anyway, I'm kind of blabbering on. I think I'm hopefully getting my points across. And with that, Michael's up next, followed by Aaron. And just raise your hand. Welcome, Lena. Raise your hand if you want when you want to share, and go for it, Michael.
I heartily appreciate all your efforts, Jamin, pulling this group together. It was a wonderful earlier day. It was very heavy with information and inspiration, of course. But I just wanted to remind Rebecca BJ that your credentials, you're one of the most credentialed persons I've ever met. You have started the Texas branch of Climate Healers. You helped co-found the conversation that we're on right now back years ago. You also are on with this group, the start of this group again. So, I mean, there's so many other things you've done that I don't even know, but just to remind you, I mean, if you could start another other networks page to link to that, you might find yourself networking with the people that you can speak in front of, So I would encourage that. But I just want to thank everybody for being here. I'm re-inspired, even though it's hard information, like James so well put it. It's tough information, but we're all brave enough to handle it together. I feel for Melissa. Her expression of emotions was so moving. I appreciate that so much, and I appreciate everybody here. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So everyone, feel free to raise your hands, even if it's a big point, a small point, any kind of point. We'd love to hear from everyone. And up next is Aaron. Take it away, Aaron.
Hi again. What I should have really said quite upfront earlier is I think the most important thing is reducing CO2 to the production of it. And I think the most important aspect of dealing with that is through law, by somehow getting Polly Higgins's ecocide law in place internationally, that would make a major difference to everything. That would be a key to getting everything in there to be able to slow this juggernaut down to a halt and change things drastically. I don't see any other one single thing that would have the power to do what an ecocide law, an international ecocide law would do. Thank you.
What is ecocide? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with ecocide, the term.
Death to life, death to ecology. Go ahead.
Okay.
Ecocide is the killing of the ecology of this planet. Basically, it's an all-encompassing term that's just covers everything from how we've treated animals on this planet. We've now got 4% by mass of wild animals as compared to how much it used to be in the past. It comes down to habitats. It comes down to everything that we treasure and hold dear, basically. Now, getting that into law and getting past the economic model of externalities, where anything that economics doesn't want to deal with becomes an externality to be put into some form of insurance model, is basically covered by models which, like Kate Raworth's Donut Economics and others, that basically implement or are subsumed by Brian Chet's the trophic theory of money, which basically acknowledges that outside of economics we have ecology and we have physics, and we are bound by those, not by the amount of money that's coming in the door and the amount of money that's going out the door and how much it's worth. So that's my piece, really.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. I'm up next. I want to address what you were saying about reducing CO2. And there's really two ways of looking at the reduction of CO2 as I look at it. And I'll talk about decarbonization. We can decarbonize the economy, which amounts to reducing carbon emissions. And the other is that we can decarbonize the atmosphere ocean, combination, because those two tend to equilibrate. So whether you take carbon out of the ocean or take carbon out of the air, those two will equilibrate. Take carbon out of the air, the ocean will release more carbon into the air. Not a bad thing. Take carbon out of the ocean will be able to absorb more carbon from the air. So anyway, those two are coupled. But the main distinction,
the oceans have 90% of the CO2 is absorbed by the oceans, apparently, or it's either the energy or the CO2.
Definitely the energy. Over 90% of the surplus heat so far has been absorbed by the oceans, killing ocean life, and ultimately burping back up into the atmosphere and the land and the ice through El Nino, etc. But here's the point I want to make. If we, I'm all about decarbonizing the ocean and the atmosphere. Whatever we can do for carbon sequestration, be it planting trees, going plant-based, going vegan, and returning land and ecosystems to nature so that it can bounce back and absorb carbon. I'm all for that, 100%. Now, in terms of decarbonizing the economy, on the other hand, I spoke about this earlier, by reducing fossil fuel emissions, there's a spectrum of fossil fuel emissions. There's the cleanest fossil fuel burning, which emits, only the greenhouse gases, but no particulates. And then there's the dirtiest emissions, which release both greenhouse gases and lots of particulates. It's the dirtiest emissions that generate the aerosol masking effect, including the formation of, the release of cloud condensation nuclei. So there's two ways that those dirty emissions help keep us cool. And I don't like dirty emissions any more than anyone else. However, when it comes to cooling the planet, which I maintain is the single most urgent and important thing that we can do right now, we have to do it over and above any other priority. As regards cooling the planet, when you reduce these dirtiest emissions, right, like the maritime fuel example, with it used to be high sulfur and emitting lots of particulates that became cloud condensation nuclei, that created a de facto marine cloud brightening program entirely by accident. It wasn't that the suppliers of these high sulfur fuels said, oh, great, this will also help cool the planet. That was the furthest thing from their mind. But very much by accident, they nonetheless generated marine cloud brightening through the dirty emissions of the maritime fuel. And those have been cleaned up to a large degree, and that has contributed to a big acceleration in global warming, in the rate of planetary overheating. So what I'm talking about is doing things in the right order, right? And this is now life or death. This isn't based on some philosophy or anything like that. This is life or death practicality. We need to cool the planet first. And so the most important, the most urgent steps to do first are actually not cleaning up the dirtiest of the emissions. Please stop cleaning up those dirty emissions, because they're literally helping keep us alive by keeping down the rate of overheating relative to what it would be if we didn't have those dirtiest emissions. So the ways in which we can cool the planet that are the most urgent are actually SRM, solar radiation modification, or solar radiation management, as some people call it. Paul Beckwith refers to it as SOS, solar optimization systems or solar optimization strategies. But anyway, it's about increasing the reflectivity or the albedo of the planet through such mechanisms as marine cloud brightening, stratospheric aerosol injection, which I'm not as excited about. I'm a bit afraid of, frankly, compared with marine cloud brightening, which we have much greater ability of control and therefore optimization of the marine cloud brightening. And then there are other ways. There's the ICE 911 project to brighten the ice and the snow, which has accumulated a lot of soot and therefore become less reflective and more absorptive. There's the MIRROR program for mirrors on land. For a while, they were working on mirrors for the ocean. But the bottom line is there are many ways in which we can increase the reflectivity of our planet. That is, I believe, both our strongest lever and our most efficient lever, right? And then the other way to cool the planet without reducing the aerosol masking effect is, carbon sequestration, sequestering carbon from the air. For example, boosting phytoplankton growth in the oceans to absorb CO2. I'm all for that. Planting trees, going vegan, I'm all for that. That has no negative impacts in terms of the aerosol masking effect. So we have to really be thoughtful and optimal about the order in which we do things, and we need to come up with a plan that is founded in science, founded in the data, and thankfully that is Guy's, basically his religion is that we pursue the scientific method, and that's why he draws upon peer-reviewed scientific journal articles. So let us build a solid foundation in data, modeling, analysis, as summarized by all these technical journal articles, and come up with a sound plan that we can then market to the world. And we need to debunk the myth that we can cool our planet with decarbonization alone, decarbonizing the economy, reducing fossil fuel emissions, and substituting in green energy. That is playing with fire in the very short term. Then we simply can't afford to have that be our exclusive focus. So we need to debunk that I might share a video a little later on. It's a 5-minute video that shows the green energy perspective and just how manipulative it is and how dangerous it is. But I'll get to that a bit later. Meanwhile, BJ has her hand up, followed by Michael. Go for it, BJ.
Thank you so much, Jamin. And wow, you said a lot of good things there, and I'm glad. It's scary how much emphasis is put on stopping fossil fuels and how devoted young people are and old people are to get out there, chain themselves, do all this stuff to try to stop fossil fuels when actually they're making it, they will make it worse until we have a plan. So their heart's in the right place, and they just need to be stop being lied to. The thing I want to bring up is the 9 planetary boundaries. Climate change isn't even the worst one of those 9 planetary boundaries. I don't know if everybody has seen that. If somebody hasn't, wave and I can put a screenshot of it on the screen. But there are 9 planetary boundaries. For instance, the ocean is one of them. If we screw up the ocean, the rest of life is gone. If we screw up freshwater use, okay, we lose life. If we climate change, if we don't control climate change, it's gone. So and then the other one is land use change, and there's biodiversity loss. One of the things, climate change, yes, is number one, but on the other hand, if we focus on the right solution to climate change, it can address freshwater use, biodiversity loss, the oceans. It can address all of those. So keeping in mind the habitat loss, all of those things, and that happens to be veganism, not just because I'm a vegan, because I wouldn't bring up in a climate group veganism if I didn't think it had a major impact. But the land use and all of the things that happen there, I think, can bring down the carbon. But see, that's the thing I want to see if there's a chart. Maybe some of you who have seen it or come up with a chart that can explain this. But people talk about sequestering carbon, and so you have the line here, and then you have little things where it shows, okay, I'm bringing down carbon, I'm bringing down carbon, I'm bringing down carbon. But underneath the deforestation, it's not bringing down carbon. It's the stopping of the sequestration. And so it doesn't get included in the charts that show that it's a major solution. You get it, Jamin. I hear you saying that, and I know most of you do. But I don't see, it's not, deforestation is not even being included. They don't even count that carbon. The IPCC doesn't even count that carbon. So I think because it's not out there that they can see something being sequestered, although you just brought about reflecting light, and that's not sequestering carbon. So there ought to be a way we can conceptually understand that stopping deforestation stops the stopping of the sequestration. You see, I'm having a little trouble with that. But anyway, thank you for letting me express some of the things that go on here. And sure am interested in all of this. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Thank you, BJ. I love it. Love it. What we really need is a whole system view, right? It is one world. It is one spaceship, right? With all these different life support systems, different types of ecosystems, land-based, ocean-based, desert-based, etc., freshwater-based. And so we need an integrated picture of the whole, right? A model. And there is a lot of peer-reviewed technical papers, scientific papers about the whole, right? Professor McPherson mentioned Tim Garrett, civilization as a whole. We have models of the world as a whole. And so we need to draw upon those and come up with a solid plan, a solid strategy that addresses every single one of these planetary boundaries. In terms of the 9 boundaries, well, it turns out that the overheating of the planet really impacts negatively each and every one of the other boundaries, like the ocean, for example. So much of the death of the ocean life and ocean ecosystems, coral reefs, etc., is because the ocean is getting too darn hot, right? So the linchpin is cooling the planet. I maintain that is the one that we need to focus on and that we're focused on right here. Other groups, other forums will be focused on other issues. We need to connect with them. We need to create this federation of forums as we write about in the Google Docs. So I just wanted to interject those points off of your good points, BJ. And Michael is up next, followed by Aaron.
Yeah, the quickest way to reforest is to plant hemp seeds. We should take 1/10 of 1% of the Defense Department and buy hemp seeds for every farmer in the United States. Start with the United States. And we should give the good seeds to the farmers that want to convert their old cow pastures into growing weed, the best weed. Then they can supplement their incomes with cannabis growth. Nothing wrong with that, really isn't. And that'll help with CO2 absorption, of course. And hemp is one of the highest producers of, maybe I got my science wrong, but it's a real absorber of CO2 per acre. It's one of the highest plants, and it grows the quickest, and it helps, the roots help to break up clay soils. So I agree with you, Rebecca, BJ. Reforestation is all there is to it. And you're so right about how much we need the trees. I'm going to be writing a letter to Sir Paul McCartney asking him if he'll help save the rainforests down in Brazil, his Brazilian tour happening in October. I'm going to ask him to speak to this issue loudly down south. So I have an in with his office. I'll send a letter this week actually. But I'm also being practical. I'm going to be writing to my senators and representatives about shifting a percentage of the Defense Department to climate crisis solutions, including the work we're doing. And we can all start practically by rattling the cages, because now is a time here in the United States, at least, that politicians want to listen to the voters. This is the one time during the cycle they want to hear from voters with possible solutions so they can run for office and have some good solutions in mind. And that's why we need to write to our representatives, please don't give up on the current system. It's not great, but we need to make it work. Thank you all.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Up next is Aaron, followed by Deep Post of Greenland, and then Marco. Go for it, Aaron.
Okay, if I may come back again, Jamin. I think what you're saying is an integrated or a holistic integrated view is probably what we're looking at creating. I've looked into things called confirmation systems. They're my own creation, which basically looks at commonalities and differences. Does anyone remember the old Usenet at all?
Yeah.
Where you could have a conversation thread, and then that might break up into several subthreads, and you can even change the titles of them to be subthreads. And the idea is you gradually break down, you drill down on an idea into all its fractal-like parts and thrash them out, and then you got an overview of the whole thing. And things may come off topic, and then you can pull them, you can lambda lift them up to the top as another subject again. I'm looking at something along those lines. But coming back to the Amazon, apparently the Amazon is on the edge or over the edge of being in these climate tipping points of becoming a net CO2 producing.
Hey, Aaron, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's your voice is sounding garbled. I don't know if it's a microphone thing or.
Is that any better?
Probably, yeah. Go carry on. I'll let you know.
Right. The other thing I'm really interested in is reforming continental climate and weather systems, local weather systems, and continental ones. The problem with a lot of this seeding of the atmosphere is it's not high enough in the atmosphere. What we need is cirrus, cirro-cirrus, and cirro-cumulus clouds high up in the atmosphere. We need to be able to form those. That then reflects and reduces the solar radiative forcing that is occurring. All these other technologies are doing things lower in the atmosphere and then offsetting, because the atmosphere is a closed system. We've got the ionosphere, we've got the mesosphere and so forth, and they are some of the top ones are very, very hot, and the only way you get energy out of them is by reflection of infrared energy and by microwaves. Those are the only two ways I can see we can get energy out of the Earth system. I've lost my train of thought now. So we need to be able to analyze the Earth system. I would really like to find some experts who can do a couple of talks. One of them I would say should be called something like the physics and chemistry of, where are we? Of energy transfer in the atmosphere, chemical and energy transfer in the atmosphere, the physics and chemistry of heat and chemical transfer in the atmosphere. And the other one is the history of climate change. So we start with the mathematics, we start with what's his name, who dealt with heat transfer in metals, gases, and solids, gases, and liquids. I always forget people's names. Go through from that point. It was all known in the 1800s, and if we go through with the history and build it up to be a talk or a film, so that people can get a total overview of that, they can then have a talk or a film explaining how the atmosphere works, so that so there's this general that's done on a level that most people can understand. Maybe we do two levels for each of the talks, one for experts and another for non-experts and children. I don't know, this is just how I think we should move forwards.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Aaron. We need to bring clarity, crystal clarity, founded in data and analysis and modeling of that data, and put it all into an integrated picture. That's absolutely.
So I do remember old people's names, but it doesn't come out my mouth.
Sure. No worries. Good stuff, Aaron. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. All right, Deep Post.
Yeah, let's see here. Okay. First, I just want to ask a question about the software, because I see when people start talking and they're giving the microphone, then they jump up and down and left and right on my screen. Is there some kind of meaning to what happens with the?
Yeah, so what's happening is when you raise your hand, you go to the kind of the top of the queue, which is the upper left portion of the screen. When your hand is lowered, you go to whatever default order the algorithms have, which might be based on when people entered the room. They're definitely giving priority to people who are on video as opposed to off video. Yeah.
Because when people start talking, then all of a sudden they disappear to the bottom right or something, or under my chat box, basically, or yeah.
Oh, well, we might lower the hand after they finish talking.
Yeah, I thought of that. That's a great idea, BJ.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll keep the hand up while people are talking.
Yeah,
it's also alphabetical order.
Okay, yeah. That was just a puzzlement. But I was thinking about, it seems to me that scientists and their politicians are getting tired of asking the Samis and the Inuits for permission to do industrialization of the Arctic or geoengineering and stuff. And I've been to one of those meetings myself where they wanted to basically have a carpet of what do you call that? The thing you have in your pants in your kitchen, the anti-stick kind of thing. I just totally forgot the name of that. Teflon.
Teflon.
Yeah. They wanted to come here to Greenland and have a 5-kilometer wide carpet or curtain of Teflon to stop warmer water from getting in the fjord and cold water from getting out or whatever. And that was going to happen in the biggest ice fjord, the biggest calving glacier north of the Antarctica. And what they hadn't thought about was that Teflon is, of course, a microplastic and toxic source material, and if it's not safe to cook your meal on it, it's not safe to have in the fjord where you have the richest fishery in Greenland, right? That's the exact same place as this ice fjord. And also with the Sami people in northern Sweden, in Kiruna or up there, they also were very negative to having some kind of test flights with some aerosol spraying or whatever. So that's that. So my thought is that sooner or later these Green New Deal politicians, whatever, sooner or later going to stop asking, and we've had these revelations about ocean spray on the west coast, US West Coast, and other black operations where they didn't ask. So it's perfectly in their MO to not ask people before they do experiments, right? So my question is really about FOIA, or Freedom of Information Act, because I'm not American, so I don't know about. Can I even send a FOIA request as a Greenlander, or do I have to? Yeah, maybe I should just try to link up with somebody who knows more about how that works. And the other side of it is, will they even answer if it's sort of black op or secret government spraying of the Arctic or whatever? Are they just going to stonewall any kind of request about that? That's one of the things that I would maybe suggest or volunteer to work on. And the idea is basically that before we start projecting or working on cooling the Arctic or the planet, as it were, we should get some kind of directory of already going projects, black or otherwise, and maybe ideally, in an ideal case, maybe one of the black ops isn't really that black, and maybe more people could support that in the extreme case, or maybe there's something going on that will kill the plankton and the fish in the Arctic, which we also don't want, right? Because people gotta eat, and polar bears gotta eat, and seals and walruses have to eat. And if you sort of pollute or destroy the very basic first part of the food chain, which is the plankton and stuff, right? Then you kill off the entire Arctic. So I don't know what you southern people think about the ice and the Arctic, but the thing up here is that we don't. Of course, we import some food, of course, from Europe and stuff, but basically, we don't allow a mining company to mine close to a fjord, because the fjord is where we eat, right? So that is, that is where indigenous people and even Scandinavians who live here get their food. So we don't look kindly to industrial processes that pollute the ocean environment. So that, you know, you have to sort of juggle different balls at the same time. You can't just save the ice while destroying, you know, like the Ice 9/11 suggestion, which is introducing a lot of microplastic into the
not plastic,
into the,
not plastic. They're actually microspheres of glass, essentially.
yeah, but
yeah,
they will basically go into the stomach of the fish we eat, right? So you understand, this is where we eat. We don't go to the supermarket for food. We catch the food, right? So, or in you know, Inuits do anyway. So yeah, but basically my main suggestion is for FOIA project to gather information about legal and supra legal projects ongoing and, you know, presently and also in the past, what worked, what didn't work, what did the Navy do, you know, that kind of thing. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you're surrounded by a whole bunch of Americans here, not all of us, but certainly a majority. And excuse me, so whatever information requests the collective human intelligence comes up with and says, hey, that's important, we can certainly put in the requests. I've put in FOIA requests before. They're very straightforward. And you know, the government by law has to respond with the truth as they have it. Anyway, good stuff. Good stuff. See, look at the collective intelligence right here. Each of us having our own perspectives, our own, you know, concentrations of knowledge and experience. Look at what we can do together. And so we need to grow, and divide and conquer, I believe. But now that we're just getting started, let's continue getting to know each other and hear each other's perspectives. And Marco, you had your hand up a bit ago, and BJ has her hand up again now. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Marco.
that's okay. I don't remember what I was going to say, honestly.
Marco had a rough night last night because of power outages in the area, strong winds and whatnot. So,
yeah, go ahead, VJ.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Marco. Sorry about that. So for our meetings, I guess I need a little more clarification. I understand that we're planning here how to go forward, and we're not just going to keep bringing people in with bits and pieces of information. We're going to coalesce something, move forward maybe on a project here, maybe the training video, a project of groups like Andrew was talking about, or like the other gentleman from Humanity Rising was talking about, or something. But also I got the impression that we were going to have a speaker each time, and that's not what was said today. I just had that in my mind because of last week's speaker and this week's speaker. And so I wonder if there are thoughts on that, and I will be also happy to be surprised, whoever's here, and if nobody comes, the people that are here today have been marvelous, and I'm still very pleased with that. And if somebody else comes, that's also good. But I wondered what everyone's thoughts were about that. Thank you.
yeah, I say let's let people just answer quickly when a question's put out like that. No need to raise your hand, just answer. I love the idea myself of having a different speaker here each week. And I also like the idea of when we go into our breakout rooms to divide and conquer and work on different topic areas, then we come back after a predetermined period and present summaries, you know, to the whole group so that we all stay connected to all topics. I don't know if that's overly idealistic, but
Did you just to clarify, Jamin, did you mean like breakout rooms, like different groups go to different breakout rooms and then compare notes after they gather?
Exactly. They come back to the main room And, from there, they can then present summaries of what they found and do a little bit of Q&A, make it brief. So that way the whole community stays abreast of all topics. Passing the feather.
I really don't like breakout rooms. I find I go into them, they're not, the time allocated isn't long enough. What I say never ends up in the summary. I think we need specialized people to go away, have a Zoom meeting, as long as this one discuss those things, have a formalized session.
Aaron, I'm sorry to interrupt, but your microphone is like really kind of low. Yeah.
Better?
Probably.
Yeah. So I like the idea of having a formalized session at the beginning, then an informal session where anyone, like an unconference, I don't know if you have ever heard of unconferences, where they're basically organized where people can come along with an idea at the conference and put on a breakout room to discuss that, that rather than a formalized conference. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So you have a formalized session where people present evidence. Then you have an unformalized session like this where people can chip in and bring up interconnected ideas, and you get cross-disciplinary stuff going on. And then you have a formalized session again where everything's brought into a structure where it can be even presented as a video at that stage to the rest, to the main group. So you can actually come back with some formalized results as a video, and maybe as in a written form of notes as well. But anyway, I like this term new green money. It's the greenwashing stuff. For whoever sort of brought that up, but yeah, so I think we need to work out how to formalize things, but also be able to be loose and have these brainstorming sessions. I like the idea of what we had in England with people's assemblies, where you get experts presenting expert information for a people's assembly, then to make for lay people, then to come to decisions based upon that formalized information. These sort of structures, I think we need to maybe even formalize in some sort, in some structured way. I think we really need to look at structures of communications and how we go about that. Going back to the idea of the Usenet, I like the idea that we can integrate across from stuff that's on the internet and also make that fit in with what's going on in real world discussions between people, to sort of bridge that gap, and come out with something solid out of it, rather than it just being this set of discussions that everyone takes notes, there's main notes and stuff. I don't know. I think we need a session on actually looking at how we communicate and formalize information, really.
I love that.
Like Parliament, where a guy gets up to the front and tries to persuade everybody else to their view.
Well, I mean, I think we're talking about much more sophisticated models than that, Michael, but I really like what you just said there, Aaron. As I noted earlier, we do have some folks who have some ideas, some methodologies that they're bringing to the table that they might have worked with in the past. So we need to look at what's worked in the past. But I really like your idea of this Usenet, about bridging that, because there's so much knowledge that is developed and surfaced in those Usenet conversations. And it's in that ACE. I used to participate in those sort of discussion forums years past. And I think that perhaps, using that as a foundation, and then bringing to there's something magical about conversation, right? That's undeniable. It's how we evolved to communicate. So our brains are wired to, look at each other's visual cues. When I see Aaron nodding his head up and down, Michael nodding his head up and down, I'm like, yeah, okay, good. I'm on the right track here. Right. Versus if I see people kind of, what, then, oh, look, I something's not so clear. Let's address that. Deep Post just brought up Google Wave. So that there have been successful models from the past. How do we, how do we bridge, the world of written text and conversation, and how is information captured and synthesized and summarized? How do we do that? This is a very important topic space. So let's continue. Okay, passing the feather. Thank you.
I can put up an NNTP, network news protocol server on a little. I've got these little devices. That's a 8-core, 10-watt little computer that can be plugged into a router. And I'm at the moment I'm working on getting a mail server working on it. I can do an NNTP server for Usenets, disconnect off the main, because Usenet's dying. Google Groups took it over, and now they've chucked it away. So all the Usenet groups that are left, we lost Freenet, we lost all the things that supported that, but we still have the software. We can still run Usenet, and I can do a spam filter and stuff on it if that's really needed, but we can keep it private. That might be an evolutionary step. I'm also looking, I have a feed that looks just like a Facebook feed with posts and comments and likes, that sort of structure, that sort of hierarchical structure. I can do that sort of stuff quite easy. I can make it scale as well. So I'm on the tip of putting lots of different technologies together. It just means sitting down and coding for 12 hours a day for a couple of months to really put things in place properly. But I'm trying to get a mail server together on one of these. I've got 5 of these. They can be distributed. They're like I don't know if you know Raspberry Pi. You came across the little Raspberry Pi. They're all these things are ARM based, Acorn RISC machines. They're little processors that are green, hardly use up any energy, like they're 10 watts. You can stick a 256 gigabyte SD card in them, so memory's not a real problem. So yeah, I'm trying to make forwards on the technology front. I'm going to try to see if I can put together a confirmation system of some sort, so that you can have this hierarchical points where things can be broken down. If anyone flags up a disagreement, then that can be gone into. Anything that's off topic can be brought up to the top level again, lambda lifted. Yeah, it's a lot of work there. I really need to find other Java.
It's a lot of work. Yeah. But
I
thank you
need
for
to
your
find
effort.
other TypeScript
Yeah.
programmers. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
that's my
don't forget
piece.
othernetworks.net. I highly recommend linking to other, programmers and such on there.
Yeah, and
They're all out there.
It's .org.
Stan Pokras, I remember we were talking, I don't know, a year ago or so about some code that was really, really good for basically what sounds like what you're talking about. And then somehow it got taken down, and he tried to contact the people that were running it to get the code because it was so was so functional. So we sounds like we need to do some mining for some of those old systems that worked so well, get their code and be able to, you know, improve upon it. So
PHP isn't green. All the stuff that Wikipedia and everything's written on. Yeah, Facebook did something called Hack, which was a PHP, a more efficient PHP compiler, but PHP isn't green at all. JavaScript isn't totally green. There's something called WASM, which JavaScript can compile and TypeScript can compile down to eventually, which is binary. That will be more green. The real things that are green is static code, which is statically compiled code like C or Rust, or which is what I'm eventually going to migrate all the TypeScript stuff through to static codes over time. It's a lot of work.
yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I'll just if you do, I'll just jump in there, Jamin. I was just thinking like that, you know, Victor would be another guy to get Aaron in touch with, I'd say, but like, you know, I don't know a whole lot about the computer and programming and all that, no, like, but I know when certain people should get together anyway. But I definitely think that that's one, like, out of what's transpired tonight and everything, this is one very important subject that we need to talk about maybe and have a, you know, a subject on it or discussion on it next week as well, because how, you know, building a structure, building a framework for how do we for proceeding for what it is, what it is we want to build, and you know, we have to have structure for people coming in so that, you know, for all of the obvious reasons, and we do need structure and we do need a system to be able to deal with that. Like, so Aaron, I was like, you're like a gold nugget that dropped into the room, you know what I mean? So thank you and welcome. That's all I'd say. I think you just need to get you together with a number of other guys that come in here. Not all of our regulars are here tonight, obviously, like because, you know, not everybody can make a meeting on a certain day or time. But the point is, there are people like yourself that we need to put you in touch with, because there's, you know, this is what it's all about, all part of the networking and everything else, like, you know, putting minds together, making connections. You'd be surprised what can be achieved out of it. We started off as a very small group here over 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago now, and we've achieved an awful lot in, you know, in that time. Things that we never even dreamed of or conceived that would happen, to be honest. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's an adventure as well as you know, a worthy cause. So yeah, onward and upward is what I say. And thanks to everyone for being here. And excuse me for going in off camera all the time. I'm, you know, I'm kind of in and out and so people here as well. So thanks.
What was Stanley's second his surname for the
Pokras, Pokras.
I think you might also want to meet Dr. Silas Rao. He will probably come to these rooms at least sometime, either as a speaker or a guest. And he's talking about transformational systems also in climate change. And so
Right.
I hope he comes in and joins in the conversation.
Right. So what was his name again?
Silas Rao, SAILESH
Yeah.
RAO.
Right.
Yeah.
And whereabouts is he based?
He's in Phoenix, Arizona.
Right.
And I can't remember what it is. Silas, you may remember what it is he founded on the internet, what he did, but he founded Climate Healers, and his bio is there. But he did something that made the internet faster, and then made a lot of money, but then realized the climate was going to heck, and he had to give it all up and just focus on that. You know how that goes.
Like me.
you got lots of opportunities, but we got to focus on what's important. Yeah.
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 Yeah, he was at Intel, and he helped make the transition in terms of the communication networks from analog to digital. So that was one of the big things he did. He's a PhD electrical engineer from
cool.
PhD Stanford, did his undergrad at IIT in India, and is just a phenomenal human being, a huge vegan leader.
Brilliant.
Yeah, his paper on climate change is really phenomenal. Yeah.
Could you put the link to his paper
Yes,
in
I
there?
will. I will. I'll put that
Thank
in.
you. Great.
Let's see.
Jamin, if I may take a moment to say what a magnificent job you did pulling together the meeting earlier today. That was very well done. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Michael. It was a team effort, and everyone did their part. So thanks to everyone, really, for making this all happen. On the topic of what we've been exploring here, Aaron, one thing that I'm quite interested in is the taxonomies, and the taxonomies of topics and the branching from a major topic to subtopics, subtopics, et cetera, so that we can really get fine-grained with our knowledge and store that knowledge. I kind of have a sort of a loose model in my mind where there could be something like a Wikipedia page. I'll just use Wikipedia as an example, but really a wiki. It could be GitHub based, something that people can branch and modify and synthesize. And so I imagine a sort of a back and forth. So imagine just an inverted tree of a taxonomy spanning myriad topics and subtopics, et cetera. And that whenever there's a conversation via, whether it's asynchronous via Usenet or synchronous via conversation like this, which is transcribed, that that conversation be synthesized. It be boiled down to, here are the conclusions that were reached, and here's the data that was analyzed, and here's the result of that analysis, and and that synthesis can go into that sort of a wiki page for that leaf node of that taxonomy. And then once that synthesis process is complete and it can be read and reviewed and digested by a bunch of folks, like, please, read this synthesis prior to our next meeting, then we have another meeting that then takes that as its starting point, develops a bunch of new information that then gets resynthesized and stored in that, Wikipedia page for that leaf node. And so it becomes a cycle of consolidation, synthesis, boiling it down, folks reading that, getting that shared knowledge base, and then coming together in conversation. Hey, I read all that, but I see that this piece is missing here. What about that? And what about this? And there's a contradiction there. So let's resolve that, et cetera. So I think that could be an important part as well, this taxonomic structure. I think there's so many possibilities for data structures and the kinds of things that you were talking about, some of which is over my head. And but if we get the right mind,
form-based stuff.
Form-based
stuff. In Wikipedia, if you follow the taxonomies and you to the next, everything goes back to philosophy. Which is a strange one. Well, it's not strange given history, but yeah, history of science. Yeah, so I mean, I think maybe if I put up an NNTP server for our own Usenet, we can have each of the groups can be like a taxonomy of broken down, like whatever can be used to give a taxonomy of all our topic areas. Then each of the news groups in those can then have the discussions. I don't know if it's the quickest thing that I can put up that will enable that sort of structure in a looser form to be used. And then that information from that can later be extracted and put into a database of a hierarchical database of or network database of some sort.
Sounds good to me. James has his hand up. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, yeah, I could be wrong here, no, because as I said, I'm not too technical myself, like in that orientated. But you definitely, you met him earlier briefly, Stan Pockris, right? I think you should, even now at the moment, take a look at his website, because he has the structure, he has the framework, and it's all in text form basically, and he's looking for someone to kind of create the system for it. So I just think you're the marriage made in heaven, basically. So I reckon you should have a look at his website. I'm not sure, one said .net and one said .org. I think it's definitely .org.
Right, I looked at the .net, I think, not a .org. I'll double check that then. Okay, great,
definitely
thanks.
have a look at it, and maybe even just having a brief glance over that yourself, you'll understand probably where I'm coming from, because I can't explain it myself properly. Thanks.
Cool.
Let me give Stan a call, see if I can get him back in here.
That's a great idea, James. Real great idea. Thank you for that.
I put a link to other networks in the chat, and other networks is a wiki. It uses the wiki.
Yeah, I sort of spend about 24/7, 52 working on climate related or computer related problems. So I'm contactable near enough anytime. I generally keep American West Coast time, even though I'm in the UK, just because I used to program a lot, and everyone's online at those periods for dealing with problems. So I do keep American hours normally.
Well, Jim, I will be glad to hear that anyway, because you know he's on Pacific time, so yeah, it's helpful when you're a night owl in the east here.
Yes.
Okay, I just spoke with Stan. He needs to do some self-care right now, basically. But he said he'll get in when he can get in. So who knows? Sometimes
we've got time. I'll have to have a look at his site anyway and have a proper look at it.
Yeah, he does a really good job of walking us through it. We've recorded some of those walkthroughs before, but we don't have its we don't have it structured. That's another part of our problem. There's all these artifacts, whether they're video recordings, or blog posts or articles of one kind or another. Google Docs, I've just done a ton of writing in the Google Docs. So this taxonomy of topics, each topic needs to, have links or pointers to these various artifacts, and and then have some sort of advanced search capability. I did some writing that I'd love for you to actually take a look at whenever you have a chance, Aaron, in the Google Docs. I put a Google Doc in the chat a bit ago. There it is. I just put it in again. That's the first Google Doc in a series of 3 that talks precisely about cooling the planet, but then it links to another Google Doc that goes deeper, and then that one points to a third Google Doc which goes deeper still. And I talk about collective human intelligence and various different scenarios of how we can take the transcripts from conversations and help
Okay, I started at the top, but I didn't get to the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll carry on with that.
Yeah, and you'll see the link pretty, maybe a third of the way down. There's this link to, going deeper beyond.
Yeah, that's how I got introduced to this talk. So to this whole thing through those documents. So yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, through Guy's video.
Yeah. I started reading, but I got distracted, and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
But yeah, I'll finish them. And okay, great.
I mean, I guess one way that I'm thinking about this, kind of from an information theory standpoint, is that we are building kind of this giant, intricate anthill of information. I use the anthill metaphor because it's got all kinds of, rooms and tunnels and this and that. But so it's an anthill of information, and we are the ants. Each of us, like if you look at the leafcutter ant colony, there's 7 different castes of ants, from the giant soldier ants all the way to the tiny ones that essentially do the farming and the digesting of the food and making it digestible for all the other ants. And so we are like, an ant colony with different castes. There are those of us who are really into the science, others who are really into the data, others who are really into the information architecture, others who are into the social media and the connections and the strength of weak ties and all these things. And we are together building this structure of information, which ideally would not really depend upon the human tenders of that information, those who are tending to the information. Once the information is well enough structured and complete and synthesized and defragmented and cleaned and et cetera, then theoretically any group of people could come upon it and make sense of it and verify it and say, wow, this is
it needs to become active information. The way I see it, we all have our own life paths. Now, us lot have had our life paths suddenly changed by a realization that there is something more important, a higher calling. So we're following these threads. Everyone's following a thread. You can only bear, with that thread, you can only bear up, some people up to 15 different things at once. Otherwise, you start to get lost and go in different directions. So, but we need to make this information so it's accessible and it becomes active information. We actually get feedbacks with the real world. So it becomes a living entity in itself, so to speak, a living information entity, so that can actually change the world. This is what we're trying to do, and I think that's what we need it to be able to do. We need to get some good people on this.
Yeah.
We need to get, I've tried reaching out to other programmers. Most programmers, all they're concerned with is getting a better job. Now, programming is a nightmare. There's contractors do bits of work on bits of programs and then projects and then move on. The people who contract them just want this problem solved. They don't care about the code quality. They don't care if that thing's being maintained 2 years down the road, or is designed in a maintainable state to be used, to be maintainable and used. And there's versioning problems. The whole thing is a nightmare. What I'm trying to do is to get firm foundations. I've been working in this ecosystem called Node or Node Package Manager with all the packages for it, and trying to get firm foundations for each of the projects that I'm working on that all come together to be able to allow us to do these things. There's some key technologies that I've got to get in place, these meta technologies, meta forms that are able to design forms, so that they allow you then to make decisions based upon what's in those forms, join things, so that basically you can have a democratically designed system, so that when you go up into your top right hand corner, choose your menu, choose issue or report or idea, that they go into this form system. And if there's not a form to describe what you want, you just generate a new form or extend an existing form. You have those options of it's extensible, so it allows you to categorize information in a way that is flexible and organic. But then you need to be able to formalize. If 2 or 3 people try to do the same thing but in a different way, you need to be able to bring those things together, and that's where you need human intervention and stuff to then migrate that information into a similar, to converge it to a similar state. But that's where I'm at, is trying to work out how to do these things in such a way that they're usable by users and power users, and require as little intervention as from programmers. Like, for example, the thing to scrape for the crawler to scrape the internet. There's these things called selectors, and you basically build up a set of names and selectors. So you might be selecting the authors, and that might be an array of author, and an author might have a certain selector to find it. And then the references, an array of references. So each individual web page is described by a form that describes for the scraper to be able to know what to do. So if it comes across a page that it doesn't understand, you just fill in a form against the HTML, and you end up with the ability to pull that HTML information into a format. It's a sort of highly certain system.
Aaron, sorry to interrupt, but your microphone is doing its thing again.
I get microphone. I get your microphone. That's it could just be a phone deck. I don't know. 2, 3 testing.
It's a little better, but it's still got that.
I'll put some contact cleaner on it and check the
better.
codec.
That's better, Aaron. Thank you.
Yeah, it does sound like it's mechanical, doesn't it? It's electromechanical.
I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, I've said enough anyway. So yeah, I feel. Oh, Rebecca wants to talk.
Okay, I just want to see if I'm hearing this, have a visual of it. It's kind of like Reddit, but with web pages and more. With where you can find things by topic and it goes deeper and deeper, but better.
Yeah, sort of. It's a long, it's very different, but
Oh, okay, it's very
it might
different.
look a bit like Reddit in a way, yes.
Okay.
You have topics and subtopics.
Yeah.
You have like a hierarchy. I really don't like these things of bringing things to the top by up-arrowing them, because I always end up at the bottom. I say
Right.
something that's totally relevant to everything and I end up at the bottom. So I don't like that.
No.
But you find that the best way of dealing with things is by people is by having a structure where people can break things down by, so you might have a title. I can't think, I'm not very good at thinking of examples, but it might be economics, and then someone might put up a post under that about donut economics and start discussing donut economics, and then someone else comes along and says, yeah, but there's also this other model that's like donut economics, but it has this, this, and this. And
Right.
so that you get this synergy and synthesis of ideas that break down. And then they might say, but that's not a very good idea. So you create another thread underneath that saying this particular thing isn't a very good idea, and this is why. So you get the commonalities and the differences between things being broken down, so that you can actually it takes a lot of reading, that you need to be quite precise and formalized in the way you communicate, or people need to come along, other people need to come along and take those bits and rewrite them in a more formalized and easier way to understand. But with the Usenet, it's great because everybody can get in to it, or it was before it got spammed to death. It used to be this absolutely wonderful thing where you could go and ask any question in a particular subject area and people would just spend their time answering questions. You get experts in areas just
Yeah.
answering, whatever. So if we can create something that's got the life of Usenet, but is more formalized, I think we ought to start with Usenet and just use it, put it up as an experiment, our own individual server, put it up as an experiment and see what happens.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
The other thing is mailing lists. What I was working on was putting together a mailing list. I've got a domain, climateemergency.global, that's not up yet, which I'm going to use for my search engine. But I was going to put a mailing list up for that, so that ideally you get climate scientists involved. I was tending towards trying to get climate scientists involved on that. That's another project that I'm working on at the moment, trying to get this mailing list working with all the spam filtering and all the things to make it, all the IP block lists and stuff to make it all work tickety boo. But it's not, I've put mailing lists up before, but or mailing systems up before, but they're really hard to get right. But things are a lot with Google.
Can I leave my email address in the chat box? Would that be helpful to start to be on your mailing list at all?
It won't be
Aaron?
up for a while, but do it next week.
I'll wait.
Hopefully
Yeah,
it'll
wait.
be up next week with all
Yeah,
going
that'd be
well.
great. Thank you
But
much.
Chuck,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to put your email address up, mine's on the chat as well.
Oh, okay,
If you
cool.
want to communicate with me.
Yeah, I'm not a programmer, but I want to encourage you on all your efforts. You're on a lot of good things, and you're a great addition to this circle. So I appreciate your being here. And I know
I need encouragement. I need
you
encouragement.
are,
Working
man.
on
You're
yours
onto
is
a lot.
very hard.
Focus, focus, focus. Thank you.
I just wanted to say from what I heard, I haven't heard Usenet in so long. So I'm 43 now, and I was one of the first kids. I was a guinea pig in the first webcams that ever were made. It was me and a group of kids that were actually picked by the President of the United States in '92. I got a Clinton Award of Excellence, and Usenet was one of the pioneer. It's what we were using, and we ended up having classes, the first classes online, and we were using Usenet. So it's more of a world map, a mind mapping system. It's a really cohesive network, and that's beautiful. I don't know you, Aaron, and I just really
Right.
popped on the call, but
Oh, that's really
anybody,
encouraging to hear.
but anybody who mentions Usenet, yeah, I mean, I could geek out about the beginnings of the internet, which I was a part of. So
Yes, I was there too.
yeah, and it's just so crazy because I was actually yeah, there was no way as a woman that I could back then that I could go into STEM, that I could go into computers because of resistance from my dad and so many other challenges and factors, which had to do with me being a woman. And I just want to report that for the past like 6 months, I've been at 43. It's never too late. I've been learning coding, and it's
wow.
it's just so funny because Usenet's been popping up a lot in my visions for the future as well, in my dabbles and experimentation.
So
with coding.
what coding are you learning? Python or
Oh
what
no,
language?
I'm just learning Java and some of the
Java.
right now.
Java, right.
Yeah, but I really
Not JavaScript, but Java.
JavaScript, and I'm learning some Java, but my heart and my gut, I have some math is telling me just to do C++, like just to
No,
go
no,
for
no,
it.
no, no. I'm a C++ programmer, and I would say don't do C++ yet.
Thank you.
Learn something called, on top of JavaScript, there's something called TypeScript.
Yeah,
It
I'm gonna
allows
write
you
that
to have
down.
it allows you to have types. They're done in what's called Pascal, from an old language called
Yeah, I
Pascal.
know
And Nicholas
Pascal.
Worth's, but right, where you have the colon and then you have the type.
Yeah.
That form is much better than the C or the C++ style of sticking the type first. So yeah, if you look at JavaScript, if you look at a bit of JavaScript and then look at the same bit of TypeScript, you'll see that it becomes typed, which gives it a framework to work within. The typing framework means that you produce less errors. You can't send something that's expecting a number, a string.
Aaron, do you wanna tutoring job? I'll give you my email and maybe we can continue this conversation privately.
Yeah,
please,
Yeah.
please,
that sounds cool.
please do
That
that.
sounds
And
cool.
meanwhile, Stan, who's got a busy day, he's been generous enough to pop back in. Welcome back, Stan. Stan, I'm going to ask you to go back to the main room so I can make you co-host, or actually have Marco make you co-host so that you can screen share. So Marco, are you there, Marco, to do that? Otherwise, I'll reclaim host. But anyway, Stan, let me move you back briefly to the main room so that you can be anointed co-host. So bear with me a second. Move to... No, actually, I think you need to leave. Oh, no, there we go. Main session. Okay. All right. Stan will be right back as co-host. Marco, can you anoint Stan? Okay, thanks. As soon as he gets back in there. Okay. This will just take a moment. And then Stan can screen share. Other networks.
Ask a question, and the I forget her name. That's what my problem is, but her name is different today on her screen. Your friend, Marco, you know who I'm talking about?
Me? Are you talking about? I'm
Oh, yeah, yeah,
usually
yeah.
Lena.
Oh, it's Caroline.
Sorry. Yeah, but
Marco, can you
sorry.
stand back into room 31? I need, okay,
Yep,
thank you.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Okay, and you want me to share the video again?
Not the
I c-
video, but other networks, Stan, would be awesome.
Oh, okay.
Can you guys rename me to Lena, Leena? Because I can't seem to change my name back to. I'd rather not have my full name. I guess.
You can.
Either way, I'm Lena.
Where is it?
My full name's on the. Either way. I really do believe that there's a way to bring back the networks and create a more cohesive and liberating internet infrastructure. Aaron, and the work that you're doing is paving the way. And the only thing is we have so much more resistance now because the internet, people are seeing the power, right? And it's just, but I believe in the coders and the hackers and all the computer geniuses these days. And I could
Well,
have been one.
and you can still be. And Stan is back. So Stan, go ahead and screen share for us.
Okay.
Other networks, and also specifically like the kinds of
Okay.
relationships that like this is of that class and this is of that other
Okay,
class.
well, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the work that I do with other networks depends very much on what it is that we're thinking about.